Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our fourth in our HS2 series. Very excited to have with us this morning Joint Venture Align. Hey, Tom, glad you've joined us. They're going to share different areas of the business and where they sit in Europe's largest infrastructure projects. So very exciting to hear what you've all got to say. So I'm not going to talk anymore. It's not about me. I'm just going to say sit back and enjoy, and I'm going to pass over to Angela. Over to you, Angela.
I say good morning, everyone, and welcome to our virtual career chat with myself, Angela Forbes. It's a great pleasure to welcome you all back as we enjoy this beautiful weather. So in this very much anticipated summer period, we're storming towards the summer solstice on Sunday along with Father's Day. So my own personal best wishes to all you incredible, brave military veteran dads out there. Now, as part of our HS2 appointment, we have this timetable of these virtual career chats to introduce you to all the tier ones appointed on the project who will be delivering the works. Now, we're delighted to be chatting to Align this morning, who are the JV made up of Bouygues Travel Publics, Volker Fitzpatrick and Sir Robert McAlpine. Now, this joint venture is delivering the line from the London Borough of Hillingdon over this phenomenally stunning viaduct through 16 kilometres of tunnels, and it will finish in South Heath. And for good measure along the way, it's negotiating with Colne Valley, the M25 and the Chilterns. So a fantastic engineering challenge, both above and below ground. But importantly, it has the most incredible opportunities for our military community. So we're going to hear from four speakers this morning. We've got Lilia Frunzo, Tom Hughes, veteran Mark Upton, and veteran Alan Hobbs. So I will pass to our first speaker.
Yeah, so I hate saying this, but I have to keep saying it for the time being. Can everyone see my screen?
We can, yeah. Thank you.
Perfect. So just as an overview, Department for Transport set up HS2, and as we've mentioned, the three joint venture partners who make up Align, 60% of that is made up of Bouygues TP. The reason it's 60% isn't any more sort of voting rights or responsibility. It's the fact that of our 22 kilometres, 16 kilometres of that is twin bore tunnels, and that's what they do day in, day out, all around the world. We've got Volker Fitzpatrick, 20%, and Sir Robert McAlpine, 20%. We also have an in-house design joint venture known as Align D. So some of our own staff from these three companies, as well as Jacobs and Ingerot Rendell. And all of these companies, including HS2, sit in the offices we are in today, known as the main compound or South Portal, down in Denham. So we're all working together. It's not a JV where you've got one company set up one end, and you've got another company set upstairs and no one's talking. We identify as a line and we're all working together for one goal, including the client. And as we've mentioned, so there's 7 civil sections for HS2 phase 1. Most other joint ventures have 2 parts each. We've just got the one. We've got the smallest section, but by no means the least challenging. So all of our 22 kilometres almost is tunnels or viaduct, whereas obviously there's lots of associated earthworks and longer stretches elsewhere. I'll show you that just on a map as well then. So we take over from Skanska, Costain and Strabag in Hillingdon. We go immediately into a 3.5 kilometre viaduct, known as the Colne Valley Viaduct. Anyone who has looked into HS2 in general, it's the poster boy really. It's the big significant structure. Obviously a lot of it's underground, so that's the one that really stands out across the project. And then we hit the area known as the South Portal main compound, as I mentioned. From there we launched our first tunnel boring machine a few weeks ago. We'll be launching the second one in a week or so's time, and they'll be driving for 3.5 years continuously under the Chilterns, and starting directly under the M25 effectively. And then we've got 5 ventilation shafts along that route of the tunnel as well, the deepest being 80 metres and diaphragm wall. So that's a big construction project in itself, let alone one tiny aspect of what we're doing. And just to give you an idea, if you haven't seen the Colne Valley Viaduct, so it stretches across 4 different waterways as well as land. We have to build a temporary jetty to actually build the viaduct itself. So it's a massive challenge, 308 piles, 58 different piers, and 1,000 individual segments. For the tunnels, quite a few more segments, 112,000 or just over. 7 segments make one ring, and obviously the TBM will then move forward, creating the tunnel behind it. Two 16-kilometre tunnels, as I mentioned, 36 cross passages, and they'll be 9.1 metres in diameter, so they're absolutely huge. It's the 2 biggest TBMs ever used in the UK on a rail project. And just to show you a little bit around the South Portal itself. So this is the site office I'm in. Looks very small, but it's 500 people, 3 stories. Shows you the scale of the site. It's the largest single construction site on the whole of HS2, including phase 2 as well. And from here, we've got the 2 precast factories we've set up. So we spent the last sort of year getting ready effectively to start the main work, so we can cast all of the segments for the viaduct, all of the segments for the precast factory, for the tunnel, sorry, in the precast factory as well, take them straight up the tunnels on an MSV, and we're putting in our own haul roads as well, so we can take the viaduct segments down to where they will be located without using public roads. So it's quite lucky we're not in central London or in a city. We've got a lot of room to play with. It's allowed us to set the project up in this way, really. It's very rare you get to set up a project from scratch with so much land like this. So that's an overview of sort of who we are and exactly what we're delivering.
I personally joined Align in January this year, but I found out pretty soon that HS2 and Align JV has been going on for quite a long time. So obviously we had the green light from the Parliament in February 2020. And the notice to proceed. So shortly after that, in April 2020, so right in the midst of the pandemic, but as Tom has shown, we managed to put quite a lot in place despite the pandemic and going on with our works. In September 2020, we started the formal construction works. So it's mainly mobilizing all of our sites. And very exciting, in December last year, we our 2 tunnel boring machines, so you can see a picture of one of them, Florence, arrived to the sites from Germany. In March this year, we began our viaduct works. So quite a piece of exciting information that I found out recently is that we have the longest ferrovial viaduct in the whole of the UK. And don't quote me on this because I might be wrong, but it might be the longest in Europe, but I'm not sure about this last part. It's definitely the longest in the UK. And we're using so much new technologies and innovation to deliver not just the viaduct, but the tunneling per se. And then in May 2021, so very recently, I think the official launch was the 12th of May, although we started tunneling a few days before that. So that was the launch of Florence, our first tunnel boring machine, which has now completely disappeared down the tunnel. And we're going to have Cecilia, our second tunnel boring machine, launched very soon in the next few weeks. So obviously we wouldn't be able to deliver all this by ourselves. Tom mentioned that we are massive infrastructure project. We have 3 main companies, but believe it or not, we are actually probably the smallest part of the actual project. We have over 200 supply chain working with us. Out of 200, I couldn't put all of their logos because it would have taken the whole page. So these are just some of the main companies that you probably would want to have on your radar as well if you'd like to join us, because we're not just recruiting directly, but we're also recruiting through our supply chain. So we have TG Tunneling, BGC and Dennis Sullivan, who are doing all of our labouring work. So BGC and Dennis Sullivan looking at the surface, so the precast factories, to say one of them, and TG Tunneling, as the name suggests, is doing all of our work underground in our tunneling works. And then I just decided to put a couple of the main supply chain. Again, we have Tarmac, who provide us with all of it concrete, which is quite a lot of concrete that we have on site. Road Bridge doing some of our earthworks, and FK Lowry and Charles Brand doing some of our piling works with the shafts. And as I said, there's loads and loads more. In terms of our approach, I think I heard in Tom's presentation touching very briefly on the culture of the site and the way we work together. And this is, I'm never going to say it enough, and I'm sure that Mark and Alan would back me up on this, but it's an amazing place to work and be. It's very long hours and it's very tiring, but I think one of the things that keep us going on is being able to be with each other on site. Everyone is really respectful and inclusive. And in terms of skills and employment, when looking at skills and employment, I put that some of our values. These are not all of our values, but these are the ones that are most important for my job, for what I do. So collaboration, we collaborate with all of our local stakeholders and local organization and charity and referral partners in order to bring the best workforce we can here on site and continue working. Integrity, so that's very important. And we don't just do things for the sake of it and doing a tick box exercise. So we offer training, we offer placements. We encourage people to come on site because there is work. There will be for a long time to go because we just really started. And then respect and inclusivity. So we're trying to be as inclusive as possible. We have over 1,000 people every day on site, and even so, that's not enough. And in order to be able to bring the workforce that we need to site, we need to try and pitch into all of the talent pools that are out there. So that includes women, it includes ex-army, it includes any minority ethnicity group that we might be able to fit into. So I like to say that we do the talk and we actually walk the walk as well. And I do hope to see you know, as many of you on site as possible in the years to come, or in the months to come, even better. So thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Lily. That was fantastic. And can we pass over to Tom?
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about roles in general and the sort of fits we've seen. Well, successes we've already had with Buildforce would be a good place to start. So we've had engineers, lots of people join, logistics teams as well. We're currently in the process of taking on a QS through Buildforce as well. So varied range. But if I talk about sort of upcoming roles very quickly, so things which would obviously be suitable, I would imagine, for a lot of the skill sets out there. So we've got lots of engineering roles, whether that's within the quality department, whether that's working directly on the Calm Valley Viaduct, so any sort of marine work such as cofferdams and things like that. More QSs always is the case as well. Looking at other roles for the tunnel specifically. So as I mentioned, the MSV taking the segments, it's a vehicle which will carry the TBM segments up the tunnel onto the back of the TBM. So lots of logistics around how exactly we do that, as well as foremen running those sort of projects, general foremen in the precast factories we're looking for general foremen to work on the shaft sites. So whereas we've done a hell of a lot of recruitment already, there's still plenty of roles on almost every aspect of the project I detailed earlier. So I would ask if anyone has a specific interest in any of those areas I mentioned. I mean, after this, I'm sure my contact details will be made available, and please do just get in touch if you want to have a chat.
Okay, Tom, that's perfect. Thank you. You'll be everybody's best friends by the end of this, so appreciate that. Okay, and can we pass to Mark Upton? Hi, Mark.
Right, good morning, one and all. Me and Alan are both ex-service, so I thought what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take you through my own personal sort of journey, which is slightly different to most people, I think. So a little bit about me and where I came from. So my name is Mark Upton. I joined the Air Force in 1991. A long time ago. I did the full sort of 22/23 years, joined as a 16-year-old, and back then I joined as an admin clerk, which I think now has been morphed into personnel support. So, you know, like many of you, I did all the domestic sort of tours, obviously the operational tours in Afghanistan, Falkland Islands and places like that. And I actually finished up my career in an interesting place in DIA, Defence Intelligence Agency, Washington, DC, which was really interesting. So sort of been around the houses a bit of an eclectic sort of career because I picked up developed vetting early on in the first sort of 3 or 4 years. So although per support by trade, I obviously flicked between traditional sort of pay and HR roles and then sort of admin support for the in and ops areas, which saw me doing very small scale office management type roles, which is where I sort of ended up here. So it does sort of all tie in the end. So like I said, I finished up in 2014 out in America. I actually married a US servicewoman out there, officer, and we sort of settled down. So I had a 2-year sabbatical. So I left, became a stay-at-home dad for a couple of years, and the plan was going to be after about 4 or 5 years, when my son got to sort of schooling age, I was going to return back to the workplace. All best laid plans and all that don't survive first contact, as we all know. So unfortunately, my marriage broke down, and I found myself coming back to the UK sort of 2 years into that with my son. So I got back to the UK, moved in with my parents, sort of all very bizarre after being sort of, independent since the age of 16. And all of a sudden I found myself sort of like with the baggage that we got off the plane with, and not a lot else, to be honest, apart from an Air Force career behind me. So the first thing I did is I thought, right, who can help? So I went to the Career Transition Partnership, and I sort of like reached out to them and said, look, I'm in this situation whereby I've been out of work for a couple of years. I did a full career, etc., etc. I've got transferable skills, but I don't know where to start really. So it was all a bit daunting. However, they were really good. They turned around and said, yeah, no problem. Although you're outside of your 2-year window, we can still help with sort of like, creating a CV, assigning you an advisor, and generally sort of like trying to help you get into the workplace. So that was amazing. So I worked with them, I worked with the advisor, and obviously, we talked about my skills being transferable, being, from the admin sort of world, which is fairly good. And we looked at putting together a CV. Now, they're not going to do it for you. I don't know how far along some of your journeys are, but, I think it's a bit of a misconception sometimes that, CTP will write your CV for you. That could be further from the truth. What I got was, you need to do it, and then we will look at it and we will sort of like try and help you, strengthen it, if you like. So I started off, writing my own CV, pushing it through to them. It was very generic. They sort of ticked it off as being okay. And then I actually got some specialists to look at it. And although it was okay, it wasn't, going to sort of like put the world to rights or anything like that. So I actually ended up really sort of doing a lot of research online. And what I could say is the mistakes I made is with my CV, I made it very generic. And I think with any job role, and I think the resourcing guys will probably back me up on this, is obviously a job advert is almost asking very specific questions. It wants you to tell them that you're competent in different areas. And I think the mistake I made, like I say, initially, albeit I got work fairly quickly, was I thought that you could just write one CV and it would catch all, and it just doesn't. So my first sort of like tip, if you like, would be do your research on the field of work you want to get into. Don't worry about going out onto Google and actually Googling those sorts of CVs. So, logistics drivers or whatever it is you want to do, and work on sort of translating your military experience into sort of civilian language, because that's something else that I found when I left, is we've almost got our own language in the military, and we've certainly got a lot of sort of, ways of speaking and different areas that don't necessarily translate directly to civilian life. And so I sort of immediately picked up on that, and I started looking at how can I relate my personal experiences in my career and my skill sets into being relevant within the jobs that I'm applying for. So I immediately started doing that, and once I did that, I was starting to get a lot more responses from people, which really helped. So that's sort of like a tip that I would try and pass across, because, like I say, I failed at the first hurdle myself with that. Superlatives and things like that as well, I think, is another one. It's a bit like report writing. It's like, make sure that your CV is actually telling them what you can do. Don't gloss over it. Actually give proper examples of what you've done and how you can achieve what they're asking for in the job advert. Because the bottom line is, I get a few CVs come across my desk these days because I'm a head of department now, and I've had to set those up from scratch. And I also see the odd military one as well come through Build Force. And the thing I see is like I say, it's the jargon. I'm trying to read through, a CV from someone who, for example, I had one from an admin officer, and basically they were trying to sell themselves as an HR business partner. And what I got out of it was lots of different things, but there was nothing that I could really nail down to business partner. It was more sort of like project management, if anything. And so it was quite confusing. So like I say, be very clear on I think what you're going for. You know, the job advert will tell you what they want, and directly translate what you need from your experience across into that, and use examples offline to sort of use that terminology that's recognised in the civilian world. Because like I say, we do use a lot of hyphens, you know, we use a lot of abbreviations, sorry, and things like that they just don't get. So that would be sort of something that I'd like to pass over just through my own personal experiences. When you're in the military and when you're leaving, I think, you know, you get a lot of smoke blown up your backside, if you like, with regards to your skill sets and with Just Cause. I mean, you know, we have fantastic leadership, change management, planning, organisation, common sense, work ethic, you know, that can-do attitude, which you literally just can't buy. And I think you've got to try and relay that across as well to, you know, to the employers, because one thing I've noticed that, especially on project, is we're quite a rare breed, really. You know, we deal with change management probably more than most during our careers, and that is a really, really good skill to have. So again, you know, big yourself up, because you have got an absolute ton of experience in all those areas that I mentioned. So try and get that across. Something else that I found as well is, me personally, sort of like being in the HR world, I initially was trying to sort of go across as an HR manager, and what I found was actually my military sort of courses didn't really translate into anything across into the civilian world. So, you know, you need to try on your way out to use your money to try and get the civilian accreditations. Even if at the start it's at the lower levels, that's absolutely fine. But get your foot on the rung, if you like, on the rung of the ladder, just to show them that you've got something that they can equate to what they're looking for. Because a lot of our military courses, unfortunately, don't sort of translate across. I think the ones that do are sort of the promotional ones. Certainly when I left, it was Chartered Management Institute. I think as a sergeant, I left at level 5 in leadership and management. And that one did seem to hold some weight. But like I say, all my sort of HR managers, internal courses and things like that didn't really hold any weight whatsoever, which is why I ended up streaming off into sort of the office management side of things that didn't really require civilian accreditation. So yeah, like I say, if you can on the way out, get some sort of civilian qualifications in line with the field of work that you're looking to go into, that will put you in really good stead, I think. Disappointment I've got here. So it's a numbers game without a doubt. So, you know, you will go for interviews that you think you've absolutely knocked out of the park, and people will give you fantastic feedback, but you might not get the job. And it's just a super competitive market. That's all it is. I went for several jobs, and one of them I thought I had absolutely nailed on. I had a really good rapport with the interviewer, who was sort of like the head of HR, and walked out of there thinking that's in the bag. And unfortunately, you know, they came back to me and said you didn't get it. But the feedback was that you came across really well, and you know, keep plugging away. And actually, the sort of agency that I went through to get the interview in the first place ended up offering me a job, which I didn't take because I came to a line. But what I'm trying to get across is don't take it personally when you get told no. It's 9 times out of 10, it's not to do with you necessarily. They just might be looking for something very, very specific, or someone might just have trumped you. And like I say, there's nothing wrong with that at all. Try and get feedback. Always try and do that. Not everyone wants to give it to you, but I certainly, every time it didn't work out, I always asked, you know, well, did I come across well? Did I have the skills that you were looking for? Was there anything that you think that I need to improve on? And you know, if you keep asking those questions, you know, most people will come back and give you the answers to that. So that's something I'd like to pass across as well. So the way I actually got my foot in the door here at the project is, again, going through the Career Transition Partnership. They've got a jobs bulletin board. So if none of you are aware of that, then that's a pretty good place to go. It's their own bulletin board as well. And they've got lots of good jobs for ex-military in there. And I just saw a very innocuous sort of like, you know, advert, if you like, for a line saying, you know, we're looking to give someone work experience who's potentially been out in the workplace for a period of time, you know, single parents or people that been on maternity or that sort of thing, or just people that have generally been out of work. So I applied for that, and fortunately, got the phone call and was asked to come and sort of join for a month. So I think what I'm trying to say with that is there's different ways to skin a cat in this game. Yes, your CV is sort of like your foundation, but there's job placements, there's ex-military work programs, there's ways of getting in and getting your face seen. And I think, to be honest with you, my personal experience is you've got much more of a chance of getting the job you want by getting through the door and showing them what you can do. It's at zero risk as well. That's the other thing I really liked about it. There's no bones about it. I had 2 years out of work. I was concerned that I'd had a lot of skill fade with regards to, using Word and things like that, as these things sort of move on so quickly. So, I thought to myself, if I can get in on this work experience, they paid my travel and my lunch, so I wasn't out of pocket. I can test myself against others and see where I sit within sort of like the civilian world. And fortunately, the 4 weeks went well, and I realised, I can cut it. I've got the skill sets, as the Air Force kept telling me throughout my career, to mix it sort of like in the civilian world, and I've got skills that people want and desire. So that was my sort of, like I say, that was my in, if you like, and always consider those other avenues, these work placements, these ex-military programs and stuff like that, because there's quite a few of them out there now. And a lot of them, what they do is they take you on and sort of like, they won't pay you a wage, but they might put you through some training, or they give you a trial period. And like I say, if you do well, you'll come out the other end of it, which is awesome. So that was it. That was my start at Align. I walked out of there after the month. I left them my CV. The guy that I had taken me on, he said, I didn't have anything for you at the time, but we'll let you know. Within 2 weeks, I think I had a phone call to say, we'd like you to come back and chat about the office manager's role. So I went back. I had a very informal conversation because they knew me. I'd been there for a month. And basically, they outlined what they wanted, and they wanted me to set up their offices in London. They'd just moved to new premises, so it was all sort of like a bit up in the air. And I set about that. So I set up all the printing, AV, all things like the stationery, set up a reception, all the things that you would normally see in a functioning office, and then became sort of like the conduit between the facility management team within that set of offices. The runner of the office, here we go, sort of thing. So that was it really. As the project grew, and it grew very, very quickly, obviously I started to get more opportunities, if you like, to do other things. So what started off as a very generic office manager's role started becoming almost like a mini project manager. So that office in London started growing from 90 to 200 within a year. So you can imagine I had to source more accommodation space. We had to move our meeting rooms up to a different level so we could then knock out walls and create more desks and all the rest of it. Managing the budget, managing the supply chain, but again, going back to what I said earlier, these are all, although I'd never done any of it before, these are all within the desired skills that I'd learned through the Air Force, the leadership, the change management, the planning, the organisation, a lot of common sense thrown in there. And, I came out of school with no qualifications particularly, and like I say, left with what the Air Force gave me. And yet, the Air Force gave me some good skills to go forward with. So that was sort of part one, if you like, that design phase down in London. The second part of the role was, we knew if we were going to get notice to proceed, which we did, then we would need to set up site offices. And what was sold to me is, we need you to help at the start, turned into something a lot bigger. So me, a project manager, a fairly senior guy in BTP, an engineer, and my director at the time, we actually set about setting up an ITT, which is an invitation to tender document, which is laying out the full specifications of our accommodation going forward in the main sites. And unbeknown to me at the time, I would end up doing all of it. And basically, it started off looking at our main office, so mimicking what we had in London, but on site, which is now a 300-person office, 3 stories high. But then sort of morphed into every accommodation site, of which I have 23 now. And like I say, that ranges from 300 down to sort of like, 50 and everything in between. So again, just through, like I say, having the skill sets that the Air Force gave me and being open as well, being open to opportunities, I think that's an important one. Once you do get your foot through the door, there are real opportunities out there to expand. You don't have to start in one position and just sit there for the whole time. When an opportunity comes and sits in your lap, it's a bit intimidating sometimes, but embrace it and just know that you've got the skill sets to do it. Like I say, I hadn't actually done any of this before, any of this designing of offices, setting up offices. I'd run offices that were already in place, but I'd never, set it up from scratch and engage with supply chain to literally build this, design it, and then furnish it and all the rest of it. So, really, really big opportunities if you can get your foot in the door and just really sort of embrace what's in front of you. Since I started, like I say, as an office manager, I've now progressed up to head of department. So I'm head of facilities and office management. I have a team of 5 people. Like I say, we run all the facilities and maintenance of all the sites. So anything that broke, we fix it. And we obviously get the specialists in if it's things to do with mechanical, electrical, and the rest of it. But we manage all of that now as a team. And having never sort of touched budgets in any sort of large format before, I now see myself in charge of 12 million in my budget. So yeah, if you can get yourself in the door, show your face, show willing, and really sort of work hard and take opportunities as they come, as very capable serving military people are about to leave, you're more than capable of doing all of that and more. So yeah, that's it really. That's sort of my journey. I think we're going to do Q&A at the end, so I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that anyone might have. And just as a sort of final throwaway as well, because I found myself in this situation a little bit, albeit my skills are transferable directly as the sort of admin support. If you're not quite sure with what you want to do, and there might be quite a few of you out there, project management is something really good to get into, because it sort of has a generic set of skills as a backbone to it that a lot of you have already got with the skills that I mentioned earlier at the top of the bill. So, start looking at your Prince 2s, starting at APM, Assistant Project Manager, and maybe working up from that, especially the more senior amongst you, probably be able to fire in, straight in at PM. But like I say, there's ex-forces programs out there within the CTP jobs bulletin board when I left that were available, and you can get yourself in like that. And they work within construction, they work within the finance area. There's quite a few of them now. So yeah, that's it. So that's my journey. That's hopefully left you with a couple of nuggets and things to think about. Fingers crossed. And like I say, happy to field questions at the end.
Perfect. Thanks, Mark. Can I just jump in and echo what Mark said around sort of really customising your CV per job? I think that is vital. Obviously, I am a resourcing manager for the project, so I'm not necessarily saying I expect that. That's not what I mean. But to give yourself the best chance, take the job spec, tell the recruiter by your CV what you can do. Almost reach out to them as well if you're unsure and you don't think. No one's going to meet any job spec 100%. I can tell you that much. Doesn't matter what your background is. It's a wish list. But from that, even if you track people down, whether it's LinkedIn or you get an email from someone from the recruiter, be honest. No one's asking you to meet 100%, but point out what you have got, point out how you see that will translate, and show them that you've understood what they're looking for and you can fulfill that, even if your background's not. It doesn't match 100%. It's up to you to sell yourself, and your CV these days is to get you an interview. It's an advertisement to get an interview. It's not the decision for the job is made on that. So it doesn't need to be too detailed either, to be fair. It doesn't need to have every single thing you've ever done, but the relevant skills and experience which will get you an interview is the way to look at it.
Okay, Tom, thank you for that. Mark, thank you very much for sharing your story. That was really fascinating, and I do have my own question, so I'll get to them at the end.
Yeah,
and if I could ask Alan, our final speaker, just to join us. Hi, Alan. We'll switch our cameras off and leave you to it.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Listening to Mark's story there, it was quite interesting to make the parallels between my service and Mark's. And I presume that everybody in the audience now is either in the process of leaving or is indeed veterans from the truck services. I'm Alan Hobbs. I joined the British Army in 1996. And I left in October 2019. In that time, I started off as what they referred to in Royal Logistic Corps as a supplier. I was basically on the shop floor doing all of the issues and receipts, and felt that I could probably add more to the team, and retraded to become a supply controller, a subcon. Which basically looked at all of the sourcing elements, the provisioning, the inventory control, and that's where I remained for the rest of my Army career. I served around the world on operations and in peacetime, based mostly in Germany though. Which was good. Left in 2019, and I went out during my resettlement phase, I was approached by a company called Agility to be a project manager for a United Nations rations contract out there. So I left on the 5th of October 2019. And I was in Somalia, East Africa, on the 7th of October 2019, and I was thrust into a position that I think the opening stages, I was almost like a rabbit in the headlights. I was the only English guy there, so I was working with Africans, Indians, and so there was the language barrier. So trying to get accurate information in order for me to add value to the project immediately was quite difficult. So I managed to work there for about 14 to 16 months. And then after there, I went over to Afghanistan, where I worked with NATO headquarters and UK MOD on the reverse logistics drawdown of Kabul, Afghanistan. And I was the logistics consultant, again, from a different branch of Agility. And I was back briefing and assisting the SO1 reverse logistics over there on the accurate and safe drawdown via land and air bridge. So that was only a short-term contract that closed out, and then reality hit me then that I really needed to come back to the UK and start looking for jobs. So I started filling out applications. I started scrolling LinkedIn and doing all of these quick click internet applications, and I wasn't getting anything back. I must have sent out maybe about 100 or 200 applications, and I didn't get anything back. So I went back to the drawing board, and I said, well, let's rewind back to when I was in resettlement, and I really focused on what I was doing in resettlement and how did I prepare myself for my future in resettlement. So when I was sitting down there, I was thinking about all of my other teammates that had left, all senior warrant officers or senior NCOs. Some were commissioned and were doing quite well. And it was astounding to notice that there was individuals there that were leaders of men and women that were not prepared at all. Now, I felt that I prepared myself by creating my CV and sending my CV off to everybody. And every time it came back, it had a different opinion. But these individuals that I was referring to didn't even have a CV, not even a template. They didn't know what industry they were going to focus all of their energy into. They didn't have a house. So they're the areas that I would primarily focus on initially. And once you've got them as your core foundation, then you'll feel more confident in expressing yourself and selling yourself. So whilst I was preparing for this, I wrote down a couple of bullet points, which Mark has already alluded to already. So pardon me if I go over them again. Your CVs, no doubt you've got your teammates, you've got people that you look up to, you've got mentors, and they will say, yeah, just send me your CV. They will give you a spin. So if you send it out to 20 different people, you'll have 20 different versions. My key message is learn to sell yourself, because at the end of the day, it's only you that's going to sit in front of that camera, and it's in front of an interviewing panel, and you need to be able to confidently project yourself and quantify your achievements. Yeah, so put pen to paper and let it grow. It will grow bit by bit, bit by bit. So start early, and you'll go from there. No military speak. It goes without saying, you're now entering into a civilian industry, and you know, certainly in my exhaustive experience there, nobody really cares about the military life. All of your jargon and your terminology, it means jack squat. Try and mirror it to another company, and this goes back to getting your foundations in your industry. There's no point in looking at other industries, because each industry has different terminologies for different chain of command or appointments. So focus on a specific industry, tailor your CV to that. And what I mean by that is, Tom's alluded to earlier on, as well as Mark, is in that application, there will be pro words, and those pro words, you're like, how do I, oh yeah, I did this, I did that, you know, and use the words out of the application and reflect that in your CV, and then build your sentences and your paragraphs around that whilst quantifying. It's important that you quantify, because you're not talking about a present role, which is a common mistake. I made the mistake, and I'm sure hundreds before me and after me will do exactly the same. You need to be able to give a brief insight into your role and your responsibilities, and then below that, what did you achieve in that? Did you save time? Did you save money? Did you reduce resources? Did you improve a process? You know, did you realign an SOP? Stuff like that. That's what the companies are really interested in. Yeah, quantify. Do not lie. Do not oversell yourself, because the questions they ask during your interview phases are they drill deep into the detail. Now, these are subject matter experts in their field, and if they can see a transferable skill that might get you over the finishing line and add value to their team, they will want to drill down into the weeds of that. And if they start unpicking it, you know, you're just going to crash and burn. So be careful with that. Yeah, learn to sell yourself. You are a brand, and you will have what I refer to as hard skills, which are your qualifications, which you can transfer over through your CTWs and your CTPs, your enhanced learning credits, and then you've got your soft skills. Your soft skills carry you a tremendous way, and I cannot sell it enough. Your analytical thinking, your forward thinking, your time analysis, your ability with a click of your fingers to understand the larger picture and understand where you specifically and your team fit in and add value. You don't need to be micromanaged, which is a huge value to carry forward. So learn to sell yourself. And then once you get to a stage where you can't really sell yourself any more than what you are, then I would probably pay somebody just to dot the I's and cross the T's, realign your font and stuff, because your eyes would have been burnt out by then, and then have a look at that. And you know, you can probably do submit your CVs that way. Make sure that when you are uploading your CVs onto, you know, job search and stuff like that, then make sure that you keep them concurrent, because you'll get email traffic coming through from there, but it's based on an outdated CV. So when they're asking you questions and then you're saying that you're quantifying it in a better way, they're like, well, hang on, that doesn't line up. So again, just be careful of that. Yeah, job applications. So that's a full-time job. As soon as you leave the army, if you've got time, or sorry, the forces, if you've got time to start preparing and doing your applications now, do them now. It helps you hone in on that, because it's a skill. Your terminology, how to say something that really impacts and hits home and stands out in 4 words, 5 words, rather than a full sentence. Because the recruiters, the resources, they've only got a limited time to do that. So you need to be able to use your terminology and grammar in a good way that really sells yourself. Yeah, use LinkedIn, but don't rely on it. I was fortunate for this role because that's how Buildforce and Caroline connected. We connected through LinkedIn. So always use that as a good vessel to open up further opportunities. But don't solely rely on it. Direct approach companies. Excuse me. Yeah, direct approach companies and get a feel for what they want from you. And then if you get rejected in the first instance, be strong enough to reapply. Mark mentioned about the rejection side. Yeah, it hurts. It hurts because you look at that job description and you say, I could eat that up and add more. They're missing a trick by not hiring me. So don't beat yourself up too much about the rejection. These one-click applications that everybody does it. I felt guilty. Fell into that trap as well. Just these one clicks, and it wasn't until afterwards when I was sitting chatting to a friend of mine, and he said, "Well, you think about those one clicks. How many people are doing those one clicks?" So, yeah, do them. They may very well open up a door for you, but certainly don't just be hanging your hat on that and going, "This is easy street. One click, one click, one click," because there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people that are doing exactly the same nationwide. So I think Mark mentioned something about job interviews and getting to an interview and not being successful. I had something similar to that. So I managed to get to a job interview after doing extensive answering different long-term applications. I got to the interview, they asked me a load of questions, and they were pretty much, retrospectively, when I think about it, they were asking me to answer their challenges. So I was answering their challenges, and then they never hired. And then what they did was they re-advertised the job. So they're just basically sucking you dry of your expertise, and then putting it into their business. So be mindful of that. Be prepared to have that. It's a difficult tablet to swallow because I put a lot of miles into that job, yeah. So I think strive to be as best as you can be. So when I joined the army in 1996, I was again a rabbit in the headlights, and I wasn't really happy with being a supplier. I felt I could add more. So as a supply controller, I understood the larger picture, and then obviously I progressed through the ranks, leaving as a warrant officer in 2019. Then those skills that I learned carried me through the project management side for United Nations contract, and then into the NATO side. But each one of those roles had tremendous bad points. I won't cover them just now. My contact details will be made available if you wanted to talk specifically about that offline. I'm more than happy to do that. And then when I got to the wind of the HS2 role, and Caroline and I were talking at great lengths about how to progress, and what the HS2 were after. I thought, this sounds really right up my street. It's ticking all of my boxes. It's I'm adaptive, I'm reactive, I'm planning, I'm in a support element, I'm under pressure, I'm delivering to tight timelines, and I'm on a project that the globe is watching. Everybody's watching it, and the engineering feats that I witness on a day in, day out basis are phenomenal. Absolutely love this role. I was hired as a logistics and maintenance manager, overlooking all of the Colne Valley Viaduct, the CVV sites. And my job over the last 8 weeks has morphed into more of a field services manager's side. So I'm dealing with plant hiring, plant control. I'm dealing with fleet management, fleet control. I'm dealing with and working with Mark and his team, facilities and facilities management. I'm dealing with security accesses, basically like QRF elements for breachments of the security fences, and lots of stuff like that. So I really do feel that all of my past and all of my preparation and all of my experiences are really coming to the fore now and really coming out in a job that I absolutely love. Every second of the job is completely different. The time the phone rings, it's a different dynamic, and I'm having to react and think on my toes. Yeah, I absolutely love it. During the resettlement, I think I mentioned it earlier on in my, earlier on, is the preparation. So if you're looking at getting into the construction world, don't just think it's just putting a shovel in the ground. There's a lot more to it than that, and there are certain qualifications such as CSCS cards. So if you're a plant operator, you're probably familiar with them anyway, but there are different types of cards. So I would look into trying to get something of them, reflect that on your CV. And then for the manager's side of it, the MSTS qualification, which helps you oversee a foreman's level, senior works manager's level, and you may very well be able to achieve something like that through your enhanced learning credits or your resettlement grants. IT and your soft skills, your soft IT skills, they're a growing skill. So if you haven't got that ability to formulate Excel spreadsheets, work and operate PDF forms and stuff like that, use this time now to practice that and have a good understanding of it, that when you're going into, you can confidently say, yes, I've got that. And then when you're in, there'll be other people in your teams that can just give you little pearls of wisdom here and there and everywhere that will help you progress on and deliver what is expected of you from project managers or package managers or whatever from there. I think that's pretty much everything from me just now. So I'll hand back over to Angela. Thank you.
Hi, Alan. That was fantastic. Thank you very much for that. It taught me some stuff there as well, which is great. If I could ask all our speakers to put their camera on, and if Caroline's there as well, just to guide the candidates through what to do next if they are interested in the line.
Hi, yeah, everyone. So Billforce are the HS2 military brokers. So if there's any opportunities you're looking for on HS2, whether it be with Align, because it is the JV we're talking with today, or any of the other joint ventures, do get in touch and we can connect you. And if you do apply on the HS2 jobs board, because there is a jobs board, then again, get in touch with me and I will follow it up with the employers just to make sure that that CV is being progressed and that we're tracking that progress. And again, maybe you just want some mentoring support, some work placement support. So again, that's something that we can do for you, not just with Align, but our other partners as well. So yeah, it's just a case of just getting in touch. Give me a call or drop me an email. All right, I'll put my details in the chat box. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. Again, if you do have a question, just raise your hand or type it in the box and we'll get to it. I'll kick off quickly. So Alan, obviously last to speak, so we'll pick on you first. A couple of things I had noticed was you were 17 years into your career when you completed your logistics, material and supply chain management degree. Why did you choose to do that degree?
Well, I think it just kind of epitomizes everything that I had achieved, and it provided me a strong foundation for what I could use to stand out on my CV in my future employment. I did that when I was actually doing a first line optimization piece. So I was selected to represent the Corps with the Royal Scots Dragoon Guards in an initiative where they removed 6 soldiers out and they put 4 RRC soldiers into first line accounting. So I was working long hours there as well as doing my degree. So that was almost the hardest that I had ever worked academically and physically over a period of a German summer. Now, those that have served in Germany will really appreciate that German summers are beyond, they are phenomenal. So to sit in my room typing essays away whilst people are in the garden or going to the pool and stuff, you know, it was hard work, and it took a lot of determination and dedication. But when I stood at Lincoln Cathedral in a cold February with my mum and my dad and my father and everybody else around me, it was a tremendous achievement, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I do believe that it has opened doors for me, not just employment wise, but it's allowed me to articulate myself better, because you know I can communicate as he's struggling. I can communicate a little bit better. But yeah, no, couldn't recommend it anymore. There's other degrees out there, of course, but yeah, I think if you can get a degree under your belt, you know, push hard for it, dig in deep, and once it's sat on your CV, you know, you're filtering out, you know, 20-30% of applicants straight away, I imagine. Mm-hmm. But yeah.
Okay, and another question is, you mentioned your role at Agility. Do you think that stepping stone helped? We sometimes get service leavers that maybe took an interim role for a year or two, demilitarized, and then came into Civvy. Is that what you did?
No, so I left on the Friday and I was in Africa on the Monday. So I pretty much had a 2-day to shake out the green and into the project management side. Did it work in my favour? I believe so, because I still had that drive within our DNA. I had that drive to succeed. But did I feel as if I was on my own? Almost definitely. I felt like I draw a scene to it was not Game of Thrones. I'll come back to it. But anyway, I felt like I was stood on the edge of a cliff face, and the door closed behind me when I left the military, and I had nowhere really to go. You know, my head was a shed, and I went over there and I was trying to put out this confident persona whilst inside I was melting. People were looking at me to make decisions, and I didn't even understand the battle rhythm. I didn't understand the environmental challenges. I didn't understand the contract constraints. So within 48 hours of me even arriving in Africa, they were asking me those type of questions, and I was, I did my best to uphold it. you know, and I think I was a good success at it. So that kind of was 100 mile an hour. Then when I got the Middle East one in Kabul, that was more of a reserved, calculated, strategic thinking, good timeline analysis, you know, all of that. So I was calculating, I was liaising with foreign ministries, and informing, you know, national armies, and that this type of freight was traveling through at a specific time, etc., etc., all the way down to Oman, and then across into Southampton and to its final destination. So that was, albeit stressful, but it was very calculated. It allowed me to take a condor moment, analyze, and really deliver, you know, above average service, you know. So and then to come into this, the merge of both of them has really helped me to take a condor moment, really plan and prioritize, because a lot of people tend to drop the priority and work to the hottest email or whatever it is. You need to be able to be smart of mind to say, well, actually, this is the closest crocodile to the boat. I need to do this now, and these will benefit from that. It will make life a lot easier in the future. So yeah, so all of that is a soft skill that every single one of us have on this meeting. So yeah.
The ability to acclimatise, you know, thank you for that. Mark, probably you mentioned actually about this 2 million budget, and it kind of prompted the question of, is your role still evolving? Are you still learning?
Absolutely. I think Al will probably agree with me, and every day is a learning day on this project, honestly. As I said at the top of the bill, I think the biggest challenge for me when I left the service and came into construction is I just didn't understand the language. I didn't know anything about it. So when you're in the military for any period of time, let alone a couple of decades where you're institutionalized, you know it from like the grassroots up, right, Al? And you know how everything works, you know how suppliers work, you know how IT works, you know how the ink core work. I came into construction, I knew nothing about it. I'm like sitting next to planners, I'm sitting next to designers, engineers, just the terminology, just literally just sitting there for months, just listening to what people were saying and actually not saying too much, but just trying to work it out in my mind what that really means. Because they're sort of talking about your J1 through J9 boxes, like we live in the military, but they just refer to it as different things, you know, but it is all there. It's just learning that and how that sort of translates across. And there's definitely a massive, for me anyway, there was a massive sort of learning curve of literally, what does that mean? And you don't want to make yourself look like an idiot, so you try to soak that information up without making it look too obvious that you don't know. With regard to my role, I don't think I've ever had a job description, to be fair. I think it was a fairly loose conversation. You know, we need some help in these areas.
Mark, you were here before me. It's not my fault you didn't have a job spec.
No. And honestly, I am not complaining. I am not complaining about it at all, because I quite like the ambiguity. Because it, as I said, sort of like when I was trying to describe my journey, what it does is it allows you to be presented with opportunities, and if you want to take them, look where it can get you. You know, I joined as an office manager with 18 people. I now run a department. I'm in charge of 23 different locations. I've got a £12 million budget that I'm looking out for. You know, I sit in monthly cost control meetings with my finance guy, trying to manage all this money in all these different pots. And is the job evolving? Yes, absolutely, because the project's evolving. So nothing stays the same. So at the moment, I'm now dealing with several other mini projects. So there's 80 overnight accommodation 80 rooms that have been set up as a overnight accommodation camp, which I just got, I inherited that, I don't know, a month or so ago. And so I was told basically, okay, you're now managing that. So I'm now managing that. There's sort of all sorts of welfare projects as well. Because of this project, we want it to be the best place to be. So we're now putting in gymnasiums and welfare areas and petanque courts and outside football areas and, you know, all of that. Yeah. I also package manage catering, so I deal with all the catering on site and all those sorts of things. And we've just set up a shop, and so the answer is yes, it's constantly evolving. And you got to do one of two things. I think Al will probably agree with me. You either roll with it or you go. And I think the best thing to do is to roll with it and accept the fact that things will always change. Yet you will benefit from it massively, because I firmly believe I joined here as an office manager. When I leave, I can be probably a project manager in most places because of the size and the scale of this. A project manager here is an extremely senior role, but when you take yourself to a smaller project, you could eat that up alive. And if you take those sort of opportunities as you come along, then you're going to develop a hell of a lot. I mean, I'm being stretched all the time. You know, we talk about that, you know, throughout our careers about being stretched. It's a good thing. It helps you to develop. I feel like I've developed massively in 3 years. Yeah.
Yeah, on that as well. So the way we've set this project up, and JV's on projects like this in general. So a line didn't exist before we started. We've got 4 years left effectively until complete handover. But in that time, whether a line as a joint venture or the parent companies themselves win big projects, the senior people will move off the project. So they will go and set up just as they have done. Some of them have been here since 2017. They'll be the first out the door. Then everyone, based on performance, obviously, it's not given to you. But like Mark, everyone has the opportunity to step up over the next 4 years.
And just on that, Tom, in terms of, you're obviously seeing a wealth of candidates coming through.
Yeah.
What is the most striking feature of the military candidates? Do they stick out?
I would say so, yes, to be fair. I think, as Mark's mentioned there, very adaptable. They don't really say no to anything, whether that could be a good or a bad thing in Mark's case. But he takes on as much as is thrown at him. And obviously, I just think in terms of, as Mark's mentioned, project management, that side of things, people can go to uni and study it, but the sort of military background, I think it does prepare you for that side. In terms of working to deadlines, it's a very fast-paced project. I think both can agree with me there. It's a million miles an hour.
Yes.
You come in on a Monday morning, you blink and it's Friday afternoon, and some of your to-do list is ticked off. But it's also much longer.
It's like being on ops in Afghanistan all the time, basically.
But it's just the flexibility. I think, it's an environment where you can plan your day out, but you have to accept that you're not going to tick everything off, and other things are going to change. And I think the military candidates that come through already know what that's like, really.
And in the interview process, Tom, do you feel that they do sell themselves? Do you feel they're still a bit too reserved?
I wouldn't say so. Obviously, it's a mixed bag. I don't feel like I could differentiate that from CVs from people already sort of working in private sector companies across the country, really. I tend to see they're a bit more methodical, I suppose, in their answers most of the time. But the advice I gave earlier, really to tailor it, and obviously use your experience where you can to answer the questions, but don't base everything on that. I mean, it's okay to say you might have a skills gap. We would not expect it, but like I said earlier, even people who have done big projects like this for 5 to 10 years, they're not going to meet 100% of the job specs. Don't be afraid to admit that, or discuss where you can sort of bridge that gap, I think, is the best thing.
And I think, like I was saying before as well, Tom, is you get your foot up on the first rung of the ladder, and you get in the door and you get your face seen as someone that can get on with it and do it, and the opportunities will come your way on a project like this, for sure. I mean, now you're probably the same, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think if I cast the back to when I was leaving the forces, I was really ready to leave. And I didn't have job satisfaction there, to be honest. I was kind of getting itchy feet. I felt trapped at certain stages because I wanted just to get out the door and take on civilian life and broaden my horizons. And then when I went out to Somalia, that was a huge thing for me. I learned a lot there, but I did not enjoy it one bit. Hated it. slightly enjoyed the Kabul piece, but here every day, job satisfaction without a doubt. I get out of bed. I don't know what the day is going to bring because it's, as I said, adaptive, reactive, and that. But when I go to bed at night, I know that I've delivered the best that I can deliver, and I've got tremendous job satisfaction. So yeah, enjoying it.
And you said, Alan, that your current role's morphing a lot at the moment. Do you think that's because others around you are seeing the capacity and the skills, the wider skills that you have got? Yeah,
definitely. Well, I think certainly the foremans, so the black hats, when you're, they normally do all of that. So I would say 20%, 30% of their time is probably consumed by what I do now. So I've now taken off 6 foremen, that 30%. So now productivity, actually what they get paid to do, which is construction and site management, they can do that in abundance now. So yeah.
Okay, Mark, just what has most impressed you about Align?
Well, I think, like I say, I think the fact that they're willing to take a risk with you, because they don't know whether it's going to work out. Like I say, I've had opportunities presented to me that I just never thought I would get in a million years. I never thought in a million years I would be literally designing offices from the ground up, engaging with supply chain, literally coordinating, which we didn't really touch on, but from home due to COVID, installation of, sites, and getting them on board. It's, it's just the opportunities for me. I think Align are really good at that. They bring on young engineers, they sort of give them a baptism of fire. And I think that transcends through all the different departments. They're willing to bring people in, take a look at them. If they see the potential, they're willing to load you up and let you go and trust you. And I think for me, that is the best thing about Align. Closely behind that, I think the culture, and I think, the team, the camaraderie, I suppose, as well, is closely behind that, because it reminds me a little bit, again, I don't know about you, Al, but it reminds me a bit about, as if we're in the military a little bit, because the camaraderie and the fun, and just sort of like, construction being like a military environment, you're in this sort of Afghanistan type zone or whatever. It's raw, and we're building things, and we're relying on others 100% to get the job done, and if they don't do their piece, you can't do yours. And that's very similar to the military environment, is you have to literally trust people, so I think the culture's also very good.
And on the flip side of that, then, what didn't you expect? What do you find quite challenging?
The pace. I think the pace is a challenge. I think Alan touched on that. It's, at times it's a bit like a roller coaster. You think you're on top of it, and then all of a sudden there's a surge in productivity, which makes it way down or transcends through all the departments. And you go through, without doubt, you go through periods where you think, oh my word, can I do all that? But you get through it. And like Alan says, with your military skills of prioritising and managing and all the rest of it, you work out, right, these are the things I absolutely have to get done. So it's layers, isn't it? Right. The second layer is sort of like my second priority bucket, if you like. And then these are the nice to-dos, but it's not going to get me sacked. And so when you methodically work through those priority buckets, when you get to the end of it, all is good. But you need to identify what are the things, what is the critical part, tasks that you need to get done. If I don't do that, is that going to have an impact on productivity? And as long as you start working that out, like Alan said, you'll be okay. Even when you feel like you're getting a little overwhelmed, and I challenge anyone who says that doesn't happen to them, because it's a big project. It's a lean management structure, so that means that you have as few people to do as much of the work as possible, which is again where the opportunity comes from to do more and widen your scope of works. But it can be extremely challenging, but nothing that we as service and ex-service people haven't come up against before and can't deal with, which is why I think we thrive in these types of environments.
And in terms of dealing with it then, when you get home of an evening or when you get to Friday night, are you falling into bed absolutely knackered, or for your well-being, are you kind of running, or what does that look like?
No, it's the usual thing. I think weekends you have a few beers. During the week, try and sort of keep it fairly decent and do a bit of exercise. I honestly, personally, I try not to open my laptop up at the weekend at all. If I've had a really, really heavy week, I might open it up on a Sunday afternoon just to clear out some of the dross email-wise. So, it keeps it manageable, but nothing particularly outrageous, to be honest. And like I say, I think if you found yourself in deep waters whereby you're not coping, I think management here are quite good at, you can raise your hand and say, I need some help, and they'll help you out.
I think, sorry, Angela, on that, Mark, I was actually going to say that myself. So we've got some of the brightest minds in the world on this project, but no one expects everyone to deliver on their own, as Mark has said. Mistakes will happen because of the pace we're working at as well. But if you raise your hand and admit to it, the smartest people we have here will help you fix it quite quickly. To be fair, it's really supportive in that sense, and it does transcend. The workload goes up and down, but let's say I haven't seen it yet myself, but if mine was down and Mark was struggling, he knows I'll jump in and help him, and the other way around. Yeah,
I mean, I'll give you an example. Just last week, I'm doing Alan knows, he's sort of working with me on it as well. I'm doing this horrific seating plan exercise for the whole project, which is like 700, 800 people. And something wasn't working on the Excel spreadsheet, because I'm not a genius on that, but I can work it. And so my commercial director, he's a director, so he's right up there. He was walking past my desk, and I know, I said, Michael, I said, for some reason, the calculations aren't working on this. He literally sat at my computer, went ding, 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 fixed it. So that is a prime example. This guy's like super senior. He's on the board of directors, and yeah, he just came across and helped. So it's all good.
And, it's a good example. And Alan, in terms of if you found a really good ally on site who's your mate that you can express your frustration with, or someone that gives you a big man hug, or do you save that up till you go home, or have you got an ex-military community on site?
So I think the foremen, their sense of humour and just the way that they conduct them, it's almost, as Mark said there, it's like the military side. So the sense of humour is very gritty. Maybe not for everybody's ears, but and just the way that we just communicate and do things, so you can vent your spleen almost there. If you're not happy with something, you can F and Jeff and get it sorted, man to man, and that paves out clear, concise communication, and you can resolve a problem fairly quickly there. So but at the end of the day, for me, I pretty much go back to the room, fall on my bed, and sleep. It's I'm that physically and mentally burnt out. It's good.
You dream it off. Okay, and Tom, one thing that Mark had shared with us was the importance of work experience for him. So that essentially opened the doors. Yeah. Is that an option on the project for others?
So we are doing quite a bit of work experience over the summer at the moment. But yes, it is something we look at. So what we do through Lilia, I think she's had to jump off the call, but we do sort of 2-week placements in certain teams. So obviously, as Mark did, I think it's a little bit longer when we did it with him, but sort of 2 weeks, whether it's within a certain area of interest, and you can go and work with that team, and obviously both sides get to see exactly what it's like, because maybe the people on the call think they want to go into planning, for example, but then after 2 weeks they might not, who knows. So there is that side as well. And also, as there's a lot of transferable skills in something like that, it may not translate, but we can also look elsewhere on the project. So we have people who have come in for 2 weeks and literally work with a different department every single day of that as well.
Right. Okay. No, that's really, really useful. Well, listen, I have loved the conversation this morning. Thank you so much for being so candid and so honest and sharing so much with us. There's just an encyclopedia of information here that we're going to reference all the candidates to watch and just pick up and learn from 2 incredible transitions. Tom, thank you very much. So I'm sure everybody's going to be on LinkedIn connecting to you. And I'll pass back to Caroline just to close, but thank you again.
Yeah, thanks, Angela, and thanks Thanks, everyone. I echo that from Angela. Always lovely to hear the inspirational journeys, and obviously, no offence, Mark, but very lovely to see one of our own Billforce recruits. You know, Alan came to me, like I said, through LinkedIn. I knew Align were looking for logistics manager, so I gladly received him. So really lovely to see the success, and Align, great company to work with. But also just wanted to echo on, I think Mark was talking about the similarity between construction and military. We call it parallel lines. This is one of the reasons Billforce was formed, because there is the parallel lines of a construction site and a military posting. You know, there's arduous conditions, the working to tight deadlines, working in difficult surroundings, cold, early starts, long days, you know, list goes on. So, you know, there is method behind our madness and the way Billforce was formed. So next event is the 1st of July with our other joint venture, HS2, Balfour Beatty Vinci. So another great one to join us. And just a final shout out, next week is Armed Forces Week, as we are all aware, I'm sure. And we have our teams growing for our charity walk on the 26th of June from Salisbury to Dorset, 15 miles, only a short trek. We would still love more of you to join us, so please do. And then, of course, you can also host your own. So all the information is on LinkedIn. But again, just drop me an email at info@billforce.org.uk if you want to join us. So the sun is shining. I'm not sure about the weekend, looking ominous again, but it will shine again. So thank you all again for joining us, and thank you everyone to listening. And remember, don't be alone, just get in touch. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Best of luck, everybody.
Thank you.